So we are less than 2 weeks away from the start of NFL free agency, and the Philadelphia Eagles are no doubt a team that wants to go out and make some big moves to retool their roster in hopes of finding their way back to the Super Bowl next season. And one of the main positions that the Eagles must address this offseason and in free agency is the safety position, as that was clearly one of the biggest weaknesses on the whole team in 2023. But what direction might the Eagles go in filling this need? Well, we just got a big report suggesting that the Eagles are looking to bring back a familiar face and a former Philly fan favorite that helped the Birds on their journey to Super Bowl 57. So could this actually happen? And also, how did we even get to this point in the first place? Well, we're going to break that all down in this video today, and we won't waste any time. Let's get straight into it. So it's no secret that the Eagles are currently in desperate need of a safety as we get ready for free agency and the draft, as the safety play last year was really not great, which trust me, we're going to get into that. And after the season, at the time that I'm making this video, the only two safeties that we know are going to be on the Eagles roster next year are the ghost Reed Blankenship and Sidney Brown, who just tore his ACL in week 18, so it's going to be a while before he's back from that. So again, obviously, the Eagles need to do something to address that position, but how did we even get to this point in the first place? Well, back during the 2022 season, it seemed like the Eagles had found their safety of the future, as just before the start of the season, the Birds went out and made a really nice trade with the Saints, acquiring rising star slot cornerback CJ Gardner-Johnson and a 2025 7th-round pick, while giving up just a 2023 5th-round pick and a 2024 6th-round pick. They then went on to convert Garner-Johnson into a safety, and he had a fantastic season in Philly, finishing with a career-high 67 tackles, a sack, and a league-leading 6 interceptions, and despite missing 5 games with a rib injury, he was a massive part of the Eagles defense, being the #1 pass defense in the entire NFL, and he also surely helped the Eagles in their run to Super Bowl 57. But it was more than just CJGJ's talent and production that made him so valuable for the Eagles in 2022. I mean, he brought an energy, a passion for the game, and a mentality that was just so valuable. I mean, when you talk about the Eagles during Nick Sirianni's tenure as the head coach, one of the main themes and messages has been dog mentality, and that dog mentality has been defined as many different things, whether it's being tough and physical out on the field, or being mentally tough to just play the next play regardless of how the last one went, or just a hunger to win as a team, and to play for the guy next to you each and every play. I think all that encompasses dog mentality, and I think that CJ Gardner-Johnson is a guy who represents that perfectly. I mean, we saw that intensity, that effort, that drive, that attitude every single play when he was here in Philly, and it consequently led him to being a fan favorite in Philadelphia. Eagles fans loved CJGJ while he was here, and it seemed like he loved Philly back. I mean, there were multiple times that he seemed to express his love for Philly all the way around.
I get treated very, 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 very like better than I was in New Orleans. And I ain't saying nothing bad, you know what I'm saying? Just, you play better ball when you around better guys and you're around better athletes.
Now fast forward to that offseason, and CJ was set to become a free agent, and most fans, including myself, thought that bringing him back should have been one of the Eagles' top priorities in free agency, and it seemed very likely. I mean, CJ was still young at 25 years old, and it seemed like he wanted to stay in Philly as well. He even said that during Super Bowl week.
Would you like to come back to Philadelphia?
I mean, who wouldn't want to come here? It's a great spot, great place. Love it.
Now, despite his perceived desire to remain in Philadelphia, things took a turn for the worse around a week before the start of free agency, with Garner-Johnson posting what was an emotional video with sad music in the background to all his social medias, showcasing his year in Philly, and at the end there was a slide saying, quote, "Thank you, Philly," making it seem like he knew he was going to be leaving. And now fast forward from that point to a few weeks into free agency, and CJ was still on the market trying to get a big contract in what turned out to be a not so great market in terms of what other safeties were getting, while the Eagles, on the other hand, had already spent most of their money. They had re-signed Darius Slay and James Bradbury to new contracts, they had brought back some of their veterans, and they just didn't really have too much left to spend. And this was interesting because I think we all thought that CJ was going to be a huge priority for the Birds, but they ended up going out and made all these other moves while failing to bring Garner-Johnson back. Now, as we all know, CJ would go on to sign with the Detroit Lions on a 1-year $8 million contract, which actually turned out to be a 1-year $6.5 million contract with an additional $1.5 million in incentives. And just like that, the Eagles had lost their star safety on a deal that at one point in the offseason, they easily could have afforded to give him. I mean, at the time of the signing, it made no sense. I just did not understand it at all. I didn't see why the Eagles couldn't have matched that and brought him back. I mean, this was my live reaction to finding out that he signed with Detroit.
Are you serious right now? 8 million? There's no way that's true. 8 mil? We couldn't do that? I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Now later it did make a bit more sense because a report came out that the Eagles had offered CJ a 3-year deal worth $24 million that had $17 million of that $24 million in the last year of the contract, and him and his agent turned that offer down in hopes of getting a bigger contract, but as they got deeper into free agency, they realized that the safety market wasn't quite what they thought it was going to be, and that with the combination of teams just spending all their cap space in other areas as free agency went on, led to CJ signing that one-year prove-it deal with Detroit, so he was gone and the Eagles had to turn somewhere else to fill that position. And they did. They signed guys like Terrell Edmunds and Justin Evans in free agency, and they drafted Sidney Brown, which to this day I love Sid, and I think he's going to turn out to be a really good player for the Eagles one day, but still, that just doesn't change the fact that none of those guys could replace CJ's production in 2023. Now I think to be fair to them, the defensive scheme was horrible and made them look worse than they actually were, plus Sid did have plenty of nice moments and he flashed his potential quite a bit, but still, with Terrell Edmunds as the primary starter, it was just a massive step back from the production they got from Garner-Johnson the year prior, and it was to the point where after their Week 7 win over the Dolphins, the Eagles had grown restless and Howie Roseman went out and decided to make a splash trade for Titans All-Pro safety Kevin Byard, which I and many other Eagles fans were really excited about at the time. I mean, I actually thought that Byard had the potential to be an upgrade over CJGJ, but unfortunately, that didn't end up being the case. Byard was really honestly just mediocre during his half a season in Philly, and again, yes, the scheme contributed to that for sure, but he just didn't play well enough. He didn't make a difference on the field aside from the Kansas City game, and fast forward to after the season when the Eagles could take a step back and just look at everything, they decided it was best for them to cut Kevin Byard with 1 year remaining on his contract. Now I did break that down in yesterday's video, so if you want to check that out after this video, you can, but I essentially just said that I thought that cutting him was the right move, because even if you believe that Byard could be better next year with a full season with the Eagles and a new defensive coordinator, he is 30 years old, and cutting him gave the Eagles an additional $13.7 million in cap space to work with ahead of free agency, and now maybe they can use that money elsewhere, or maybe they could use it to find a better and hopefully younger replacement, and there's plenty of options for that. There's guys like Antoine Winfield, who's probably the #1 safety in this free agent class. There's Xavier McKinney from the Giants, who I would really like. You also got Kyle Duggar from the Pats. There's Jordan Whitehead from the Jets. There's Cam Curl, who I also think is a really interesting option. I mean, there's just so many different guys that they could look at, but one name that I did not mention just then is the guy who I've been talking about pretty much this entire video, and that is CJ Gardner-Johnson, who has now played out his 1 year contract with the Lions and is set to become a free agent once again, and in a shocking twist, it seems like a CJGJ reunion with the Eagles is not out of the question, with Tony Pauline recently reporting that, quote, the Philadelphia Eagles will look to bring in a safety in the offseason via free agency or the draft. People at the Combine get the sense that there's a real chance the Eagles bring back CJ Gardner-Johnson, who is scheduled to hit the free agent market. And I mean, wow, this is big, and it's also kind of surprising if I'm being completely honest, and I'll explain why in just a minute. But first, just to look at the year he had with the Lions in 2023, I mean, it was kind of disappointing in all honesty, but at the same time, it wasn't really his fault, as he suffered a torn pec in week 2, and he wasn't able to return until the regular season finale against the Vikings. But the thing is, when he was on the field, he was still very good. He logged a pick in that game versus Minnesota, and in 3 playoff games, he had 12 tackles and a pick, so he definitely did make an impact, and he very clearly still has a lot of ability, and at just 26 years old, he surely should be one of the top safety targets on the open market, and with him having his best year of his career in Philly, it really makes sense why the two sides would be interested in a reunion. But there is one thing that doesn't quite make sense about this whole report, and it's the fact that apparently CJ Gardner-Johnson does not really like Philadelphia. I mean, as soon as he joined the Lions, all that love that he apparently had for Philly seemed to turn into hate, and I won't lie, a lot of the fans did switch up too. Like, I thought there were a lot of fans that were just bummed out about him leaving and wishing him well from what I saw, but there also, on the other side of that, were definitely some toxic Eagle fans that just started disrespecting him after he decided to leave. Now, I wasn't one of them until he started talking crazy about us, and we'll get into that in a minute, but both sides definitely did switch up on each other, and it became real hostile. I mean, in CJGJ's introductory press conference, he said that the Lions roster was better than the Eagles Super Bowl roster, and he also just tweeted a bunch of stuff, like there was just a bunch of little instances of him talking trash during the offseason after he did sign with the Lions, but the biggest one of those came in July, where he was on a Twitch stream playing GTA, and someone asked him what his least favorite thing about Philly was, and this is what he said.
Alright, my least favorite thing is the people. It's obnoxious and I can't stand it.
Now this pissed me off to the point where I actually made a short calling him out that I think now has around over 80,000 views. I mean, I just didn't understand where that attitude came from when he was just best friends with us in Philly just a few months before that. But you know what? He did get his car stolen when he was here, and there were also quite a bit of fans that did switch up and disrespect him after he left. I cannot lie about that. Now, I don't think that that's the majority of the fan base, but hey, he said what he said and now it's over. But honestly, it was just a lot of drama that was super unnecessary at the time. But now that there's this report saying that there's a, quote, real chance of a reunion, this comes into play again, because if he does hate the people in Philly, then my question is, why would he ever want to come back here? Like, did he really dislike the people that much during his time in Philly, or was it just after he left for Detroit that he started to have these negative feelings toward the fans? Like, is this something that he could potentially overcome? I honestly do not know. I mean, look, I'm not in Garner-Johnson's head. I don't know what he's thinking. Now, maybe he'd be open to a reunion and maybe not. I honestly can't say, but I will say this. CJ, although I do think he's a little bit weird for switching up as quickly as he did, I think he's a great player, and he's got a great mindset and attitude that fits Philly very well, and I think he's exactly what the Eagles need, so it makes a ton of sense for them to have interest in a reunion, because not only is CJ a great player at safety, but he has also had a lot of success here, obviously, in that 1 year, and he brings that physicality, that toughness, that edge to the defense that was sorely lacking that this past season, and you better believe that his attitude rubs off on other guys. I mean, look back at the 49ers game this year when those weirdos tried to punk James Bradbury before the game. You know that CJ would not have tolerated that if he was there. He would have done something about that, and probably some of his teammates would have too, and I really think that we need that. So regardless of whatever beef there is, I would love Chauncey back in Philly. He's a very good player, and he's an absolute dog, and we need one of those. Plus, we also got the money, so I'd offer him a pretty decent contract to return. Now, my only concern is him staying healthy, because he's had quite a few injuries the past few years, but he's still young, and I think a reunion with the Eagles would be great. Now, that being said, what do you guys think? Are you open to a CJGJ reunion in Philly? Are you not? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And also, while you're at it, make sure you subscribe if you did enjoy this video and don't want to miss any other Eagles coverage coming throughout free agency, the draft, this entire offseason, and also leading into next season. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss any of it, so make sure you subscribe and really importantly turn on those notifications. Also, drop a like down below on this video if you did enjoy it and want to show some support, and if you want to watch another video going over how the Eagles cut Kevin Byard and also some Hassan Reddick rumors, you can check this out right here. Now, with all that being said, that's pretty much all I got for this one, guys, so thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.